interest? Any declarations of interest, please? No declarations. If there are any as we go along, please give us a shout. Thank you. Urgent matters agreed by the chair. There are no urgent matters agreed by the chair, so we'll go on to agenda item number 4, the minutes of the previous meeting. Can I just like to thank Graham for chairing that meeting as well. So we'll go on to page 7, page 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Any matters arising from those minutes, please? Everybody's very quiet this morning. Can I have
I could propose a correct chair, if that's all right.
Who was that, sorry?
Peter.
Peter Scott.
Peter Scott, yeah. Thank you.
And a second, Hugh Erling, yeah. Okay. Thank you. Are we all in agreement what they are correct?
Yeah.
Some show of hands. Thank you. Great, thank you.
Chair, if I may, I've just had a phone call from Cheryl. She is on her way in.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Right, we'll go on to agenda item number 5, and we have Councillor Brian Jones and Tony. So, Brian, are you going to kick off? Tony, Brian's not in at the moment. Do you want to kick off? Okay. Can we just adjourn the meeting for 2 minutes, just for some members to come in? Brian Jones, lead member, and Tony Ward. Brian is on his way, and we also have Tim Tower, who is a report author. So can I ask Tony Ward to kick it off, please?
Morning, everybody. Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'll introduce the report as Brian hasn't been able to join yet. Obviously you've seen the report, and this report is about.
Tony, we're losing you. Sorry, I don't know.
Are you?
Camera off. Sorry.
Okay, I'll turn my camera off. Is that any better, Chair?
That's much better. Thank you.
Okay, fine. Okay, going back to the start, this report is about our highways maintenance specifically in terms of unclassified roads. Members asked us to bring this report today. Just as a bit of context, 44% of our road network consists of unclassified roads. And if we consider C roads and unclassified roads together, that makes up around 80% of our entire network. So I suppose the point there that I'm trying to make is that when we talk about our approach to these types of roads, we're really talking about what our approach to road maintenance is generally, because, as I say, these roads make up the majority of the network in reality. Members will know that we've been saying for some time that we need to invest more in our highways network. And it's great that the principle of that has been recognised and accepted by members, and that's been debated, at length over the recent months. However, we do need to say that we'll never have enough money to ensure that all of our 1,400 kilometres of road network are in good condition, and so we will always need to prioritise. And that's kind of partly what this discussion is about, I suppose. How do we do that? As per paragraph 4.7 of the report, one of the key principles which I wanted to highlight here today has always been to ensure that there is at least one good quality road serving any community. And I think it's important to highlight that. It's an important point because what that sometimes means is that other roads serving that community, we're not able to prioritise those for improvement because we've had to focus on prioritising that one route to make sure there is one good quality route serving the community, and that's usually the busiest link into that community. So I wanted to highlight that particularly. I also wanted to highlight a typo in the report, unfortunately, which I've only recently spotted, is in paragraph 4.8. It refers to strategies laid out in paragraph 4.5. That should say paragraph 4.7. It's an error that occurred because I added a couple of extra paragraphs in and we forgot to change the reference to that paragraph. So I just wanted to highlight that. But obviously the paragraph 4.8 does also include some extracts from our Denbighshire Highways Code of Practice, which talks about again, the kind of criteria or the kind of approach we take to plan our work. So I thought that was important to highlight too. In terms of ways that we are starting to work differently, something I just wanted to touch on briefly, there are two aspects to our work. There's the capital programme, which you all know is a large chunk of money that we every year we bring a program round to the MAGs, which we're about to do that in the next round, to agree which roads we're going to be undertaking surfacing work on, and there is also our revenue funded in-house highways maintenance, which is the kind of lower level pothole repairs and kind of ancillary work that we do to maintain the roads. So in terms of the capital programme, one of the great things about the recent discussion about increased funding for capital was also the discussion about trying to ensure that that is provided on a kind of longer term basis. So members were obviously keen to support the department so that we have £4 million a year for the next 5 years. And it's that next 5 years bit is really important because it enables us to take a longer term approach to the capital programme. And it's particularly relevant in terms of unclassified roads, because many of these roads are extremely long and very difficult to tackle in any one year. So the kind of approach that we might be taking, or we might be able to take, or we will be able to take with a longer term commitment to the capital programme, is that we might look at having to do a section of a road 1 year and then another section of that road the following year in order to make it affordable and manageable. So I wanted to highlight that. In terms of the in-house work, one of the main things that we've been trying to do recently, which is different, is when we go to a road to do some work, is to plan this in more effectively and actually close a road and not just fill the potholes with temporary repairs, but actually undertake all work that is required on that road at the same time, whether that be work to drainage, proper patching, etc. So that's something that we've started to do over the last year. I think it's been working quite well. We've been getting some good feedback from members and the public about that approach when we've done it, and it's something we plan to carry on doing, in future. One more thing that I just wanted to say was to provide some context around the resource that we have for our in-house highways maintenance team. Is something that perhaps people don't appreciate, is that in total we have 14 highways operatives in the council, spread across the whole county. So we have talked about this 1,400 kilometres of road that we've got. About 10-15 years ago, I understand, way before my time. I understand that that figure was 36. We used to have 36 highways operatives across the county. So we've obviously got less than half of that amount these days. And I just wanted to provide that as some context. The other thing in relation to that is during the winter maintenance season, when we're undertaking gritting on a regular basis, that number can be reduced to 4 operatives available to actually do highways work, because if they're gritting, they can't be doing the day job because they need to be, they're either gritting or needing to be rested. So effectively that means that we're not able to do any planned work during the winter. You know, we've only got that very, very small resource to be able to deal with the kind of most urgent needs across the roads. So obviously the detail is in the report, and the value is probably in the discussion today and the questions. Unless Tim's got anything specific that he wants to cover that I haven't covered in my introduction, then that was all I was going to say, Chair. I was going to open it to questions.
Well, can I jump in there, Chair, please? And
By all means, Brian.
yes, thanks, Chair. Apologies for my late arrival. I got a little bit mixed up and had a job getting in, but we're here now. Tony's given a bit of a comprehensive introduction there. I believe I caught him talking about the extra finance into the capital spend. I'm hoping you're going to bring it up in this meeting this morning. It's not in the corporate plan, this extra spend at the moment, and I believe as the lead member, having spent nearly 5 years struggling with the problems with the highway network, I think we're in a better place. We're going to leave it in a better place at the end of this council in respect of there's more funding, capital funding available, which we passed in a motion at full council, but it needs to go in the mainstream corporate plan, so it's all secured up and there's no misunderstandings on that front with the finance. Very important for me that, but there's still issues. I did catch Tony say we're never going to fix everything, but I think the approach is getting better with the help of some of the local members in them rural areas who have built up relationships over this 5-year run. Yourself, Chair, Mervyn Parry, just the two to mention, and things look a little bit better the way we're going to attack it through things like ditch clearing, going back to old methods, the ditch clearing, gully emptying, sweeping. If we can get the resource to back that up even better, which Tony Ward's just alluded to, you will see a difference. We will see a difference. Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian. Tim, do you want to add to anything?
No, I'm fine, thanks you. I think we'll just open up to questions and I'm sure we'll cover things there.
Thank you, and thank you, Tony. Quite a difficult subject. When I joined the council 9 years ago, my biggest problem was dog muck. Now it's potholes. So the price of fuel going up, the price of car tax going up, council tax going up, and the poor motorists are saying to me, our roads are in a worse state now. But there we are. I'll leave it like that before I upset anybody, and I'll move on to members, please. Any members
Who?
within the group, please?
Who? Mervyn Parry, I don't know.
Mervyn Parry.
Yeah, could I just ask, with the Tony mentioned that we've got 44% of the roads are unclassified, and with the C roads put into that, it brings it up to, I think he said, around about 80% of the road. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tony. What sort of percentage are we allocating of the money to the total capital spend to the rural roads?
We've lost you, Mervyn, sorry. Camera off.
Can you hear me now, Chair?
Yeah, we caught you up to rural roads.
Yeah, I've just wondered, with the 44% of the unclassified on the C roads, making about 80% of the road network, what sort of percentage of the budget is actually allocated, or if it is, to the rural roads? And there was also bit of, I remember that there was a bit of a savings money that was coming in. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was around about 800,000 that was going to be spent somewhere. Could you just maybe fill us in on where that might be spent, if it's still available? And is there any more money actually coming in from that, apart from that 4 million that's likely to come in to help us do these rural roads? Thank you.
Thank you, Mervyn. I'm going to take members from inside the group first. I'll take Graham Tim's question, and then if somebody could answer Graham and Mervyn's questions, please.
Jock, Gareth. Just one point that I'd like to raise, and that is, I think you raised part of it before, actually, because you said that your life was plagued with reports of dog fouling. Potholes has become the new dog fouling, I think, in the county, and get a lot of comments about it. I think I remember Tim reporting at some stage 2 or 3 years ago that the roads were all inspected, and the A roads were inspected every week or something. I wonder if you can remind us of the frequency of that, because my idea is that in the future, hopefully, there won't be all these complaints about potholes, because the roads will be kept in a reasonable state without having to have complaints. And what I want to know, really, what I'm trying to find out is, how long would it be if a pothole appeared if nobody reported it before it was filled in? Because that's what we want. We want it to be an automatic system where these things are caught and they're filled in, and the council is fulfilling its duty to provide good roads. I mean, with the salt bins, I did ask about if they were going to fill the salt bins that appeared, and apparently they're waiting until someone reports it before refilling a salt bin with the new system, which I don't think is very good, really. You know, there should be a system which the county finds out what the state of its assets are, and it happens automatically. So how long would it be before it was filled in? Yeah.
Diolch, Graham. Gwyneth, na I just cymryd atebion gen officers, a wedyn na dod nôl atoch chi, dyna sy'n mynd gweithio. Dim yn iawn, di. Diolch. Officers, could you answer Martin? Sorry, Martin. Mervyn.
Okay.
How much do you want to start with, Tim?
I'll pick up pretty well all of it, Tony, thanks.
Okay.
In terms of this year's budget, i.e. 21-22, I could probably get the figures, I can supply the figures after the meeting, but as a general principle, we had 2.5 million, of which I stripped out 800,000 to do surface dressing. Almost all of that went on the A and B road network. Our A and B network is actually pretty good for the most part. So the surface dressing keeps it in good condition. So that element almost always goes on principal roads, and the same will be for next year. There is obviously then some resurfacing that we're doing on B roads. From memory, this year we probably put another 400,000 into principal road network. So the remainder is then going on the unclassified network, including the C roads, so the 80%. So perhaps this year we're probably talking 50-50. So 50% of the budget goes on 80% of the network, or the other way about, 50% of the budget goes on 20% of the network. But we always have to bear in mind that I'm managing risk. So the busier roads carry the higher risk, so therefore we need to keep them in the better condition, which is why we've always argued that we need to increase the budget so that we eat into that 80% better. But if you want the actual figures, I can give them after the meeting.
I think that's close enough for me. That's close enough.
Okay, thanks, Mervyn. In terms of the additional spend, there is 900,000 been provided as additional. We haven't spent that yet, but 450 of that we're allocating to rural roads in a few locations. They were on the reserve list for the MAG that I brought round last spring. So they were roads that we already had discussed. And when I come around the MAGs, we can update you on that. The reason we haven't done them is because we were hoping to get as it turns out, it's quite a dry winter. We were leaving it until the spring because we couldn't work on them in rainy conditions. So they're programmed in for late March, early April, and we can update you on those as I come around the mags. And 450,000 of that additional funding is going to go on a micro asphalt program for some housing estates. And again, they were on the reserve list last year. So we have identified that money and identified how we're going to spend it. And I hope that's fine. I can't answer the question about whether there's any more funding coming. I can leave that for others to do. And Graham's question about how long would it take if a pothole wasn't reported, the inspection frequencies change. We do town centres every month. We do most of the rest of the network, urban network, every 4 months, and we do the rural roads twice a year, so every 6 months. We have 10 days to repair a pothole once it's been identified. So the longest, if nobody reported a pothole, it would be 6 months plus 10 days is the maximum if it wasn't reported.
Chair, if I can, and going back to that question, that the other question there about any more funding that's likely. Obviously, we always live in hope that there might be some additional funding coming our way. You know, sometimes we do get additional funding from Welsh Government. We've had that in the past, and you know, it's obviously highways is a big high-profile issue nationally, so we can never rule out Welsh Government, you know, providing additional funding. The question then for the council will be, what do we do with that money, with that additional money? Now that if for example, if Welsh Government turned up tomorrow and said, "Here's £1 million for you for highways," the council would need to decide whether that £1 million should be given to us as additional money, or whether it should displace some of the money the council has already committed for highways, because potentially, unless it was specifically ring fenced as additional, then
Tony,
it could be used for something else.
Tony, sorry to interrupt you. Steve Gard's put his hand up, and I know.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Steve. I didn't see Steve was here. Steve will be able to add to that too, I'm sure. Yeah.
I was just going to point out that that there is always the chance that Welsh Government give one-off grant funding for various things, you know, schools, all sorts of things. It tends to be between now and March, which obviously makes planning difficult. So what we tend to do with it is apply it in year and carry forward our funding into the following year so that the service can spend it. I would point out that capital funding is tight at the moment with Welsh Government. Their spending capacity has actually dropped next year, and our grant for our block grants, which includes an element of highways, actually reduced next year. So we've had to put an additional pressure in the budget proposals that are going forward, that were approved by Cabinet and are going forward to Council, to actually plug that gap for a year, so that the block grants remain the same for a year. So the revenue funding seems to be okay, but the capital funding, as I say, seems to have dropped for a year, and then it slowly creeps back up to last year's levels, to 21-22 levels. That doesn't mean that at year end they won't find some money from projects that, and basically what they do is manage all their projects together. If some projects are stalling, whether it be, you know, whatever building, whatever project it is, they'll treat it all the same. If those projects are stalling, they might reallocate funding to other priorities. And obviously, you know, one of our jobs is to lobby where we think some of that funding would be best spent, which obviously highways is a priority for the council. That's one of the decisions that we've made recently. So that would obviously be something we'd be calling for.
Thank you, Steve. Graham, Mervyn, are you happy with your answers?
Yes, Chair. I'd just like to ask one more question before you put us out to the group.
Go on then.
It was just really with the rural roads, because obviously I'm a rural councillor, and we're, you know, 6 months inspections, which is, I can understand why that happens. But going back to the previous council, and I don't know if it's changed this time, with the street scene, whereas the operatives from Denbighshire County Council came to do a job, whether they were emptying the bins or brushing the road or whatever, it was something that everybody would report if they seen an issue, whether it was their job or not. So whether the bin man comes through or somebody coming through doing another job and sees a problem, you know, does that situation still stand? You know, are they feeding, are staff that's on the ground doing other jobs within the area, in rural areas and in urban areas as well, reporting these, or is that possible something that can be included in their role, to make a note or take a picture or show something to report it back to somebody, rather than just drive over the pothole for 6 months and say, I've seen that pothole 6 months and nobody's done anything about it. You know, we used to do it as part of street scene, but I seem to think that we might have gone back into some sort of silo type work now. So maybe you can explain that to me. Thank you.
Okay, Graham Timms.
Thanks. Just another point really that I'd like to add. The roads, the A roads, are in reasonable condition in the main. But if you want to stop in a lay-by, that's very often a different matter. And the condition of lay-bys sometimes is absolutely shocking. How does the maintenance of lay-bys sit alongside the road maintenance plans?
So I think one for Tony and maybe Tim there. On the
Yeah,
second one.
Tim, I was going to suggest that I answer Mervyn's question. You take Graham's, is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
In terms of the Mervyn's point, yeah, Mervyn, you're quite right. This is exactly the approach that we want everybody to take. And in fact, not just officers within my service, but, you know, officers, you know, who work for the council generally, because, you know, that is the kind of culture we want to create, and we want everybody to buy into. You know, if you see something, report it. Because as we've just discussed as one of the, you know, in answers to one of the other questions, you know, in theory, a pothole could sit there for 6 months and 10 days. If it's, you know, if the inspection cycle is, you know, it falls that way and nobody's reported something. So that is something that we want, which we're asking all staff to do. It's something that we will need to continually talk to staff about, to try and make sure that everybody's kind of in that same frame of mind, that if you see something, report it. And it goes for all things really, not just about highways, but it's important in relation to highways. A lot of our staff drive the highways network, you know, every day as part of their job. So we want people to do that. So it's something we'll continue to do, something certainly that I will continue to push in my service with my service managers and all our staff. But actually, as a council, if you think about this in terms of a one council approach, it's something we want everybody to do. So it's an important point. Thanks, Mervyn.
Thank you. Thank you, Tony. Mervyn, I think maybe we
Could I just add one extra thing to that, Chair?
Can I just finish? Sorry.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah, I think, Mervyn, it's something what we need to add on with the recommendations, because I've sat here for 9 years and I've heard this story before and it's not happened. So maybe recommendation as we go along. Yeah, Tim.
Yeah, sorry, Chair. All it was I'm also keen to change the culture of the lads who actually work in highways as well. That although resources stretched, if they're going to a rural network to do a piece of work that they've been sent there to do, i.e. potholing, I'm going to be asking them to look around and see what else they could be doing while they're there, so that we get a bit more efficiency from that sort of thing, like even simple things like turning signs around or clearing a little bit of vegetation from signs while they're there. That's part of what I want to be introducing over the next few months. They tend to be of the mindset they've been sent to do a particular job in one particular area, but I want them to take a wider view while they're there.
Thank you, Tim. Right, moving on to Gwyneth.
Sorry, just on Graham's point about laybys. If laybys form part of the adopted highway, then they should be maintained to the standard of that highway. So we need to be, if laybys aren't getting addressed, we need to be doing those at the same time to the same standard.
Thank you, Tim. Gwyneth and then Hugh Worthing, please.
Diolch, Cadeirydd. A diolch am yr adroddiad yma. Ar ôl darllen yr adroddiad, mi es I weld os byswn ni'n gallu adnabod pa ffyrdd yn yr ardal yn fan hyn sydd yn lonydd ec, a do'n I ddim yn gallu darganfod hynny. Felly, y cwestiwn yn eitha syml fan hyn ydy, wel, oes na ffordd i adnabod pa ffyrdd sydd yn ddidosbarth a pa ffyrdd sydd yn ffyrdd ec. A wedyn cwestiwn arall sydd wedi codi rwan pan oedd Tim yn siarad. Mi ddudodd Tim fod ffyrdd gwledig yn cael edrych arnyn nhw bob 2 waith y flwyddyn, ond yn yr adroddiad ar dudalen 18.4.4, mae o'n deud bod y cyngor yn cynnal arolwg o 50% o'i ffyrdd C bob blwyddyn, sydd yn golygu y bysa bob ffordd yn cael edrych arni hi 1 waith bob 2 flynedd yn hytrach na 2 waith y flwyddyn. Felly, pa un o hynna sy'n gywir, os gwelwch chi na?
Diolch. Hugh Worthing?
Right.
Can we just take, sorry, can we take Hugh,
Yeah.
take 2 at a time, sorry. Hugh?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Bore everybody. I represent an urban ward, as you're aware, although the one edge of it is actually verging on rural. Are we talking today about this very substantial spend on rural roads, or are we taking into this conversation urban roads, particularly the roads that serve the highway developments, not the main roads?
Sorry, Hugh, can you turn your camera off? We can't hear you, sorry.
Sorry. What I was trying to say, that I would challenge Tim's remarks about this 6-month business, because there's pieces of a road around my ward, albeit roads running through housing areas, that are in a dreadful state. So is it maybe that one man's poor road surface is another man's pothole, and there's a line that defines a pothole that gets attended to, but a whole stretch of appalling road surface doesn't get attended to? So really, I'd like to see, yes, of course, the rural roads need attention. Of course, they are not trying to say that they don't, but equally, there's an awful lot of urban roads in the towns that also have poor road surface and potholes. And Tim knows that, because I mean, he must drive over some of it as he comes and goes from his home address, as he heads up into the hillside area. So as I say, I raise my eyes at this 6-month thing, because there's areas that I've reported more than 6 months ago. So I'm just making a note to send in yet another report to see if that gets some action.
Diolch, Hugh. Thank you, Hugh. Tony, who wants to answer those questions?
I'll take those on board.
Okay.
I must admit, the C road side of it is confusing to me as well. In fact, I had to ask Karen Hawkes some months ago for a map showing me which are the C roads. If you want them for your area, I can send them down to you. They're not very obvious, to be honest, and certainly once you get into a lot of the network, it's hard to differentiate between the C road and any other road. In terms of the inspections, I think I need to clarify here. Under the Highways Act, we have a duty to formally inspect a road, which is what the Code of Practice says, which is where the 6-month inspection of a rural road comes in, because that is what was agreed in the Code of Practice. So we formally inspect every rural road twice per year. In the report, what is referred to is the scanner, which is an external contract which uses lasers to assess the road condition. And we do all of the A roads, all of the B roads, and half of the C roads with that process. So that isn't part of the formal inspection. It's a separate process, and perhaps the report didn't clarify that. Going back to Hugh's point, yeah, of course, I see the network, and we have one budget for all of the road network, and my job is to try and balance that risk. Part of my problem is to perhaps try and get across that a bad road in one area is nowhere near as bad as a bad road in another area, and I'm trying to balance that sort of budget to manage the risk rather than the road condition. And I know the areas that you're referring to, Hugh, and yeah, ideally we would be doing work on them, but at the moment they don't quite fit into that overall iterative process of where the budget fits in terms of managing the risk. And I know that's a waffly answer, but that's part of the juggling act that we've got.
Thank you, Tim. Gwyneth, Hugh, are you happy with the response?
Diolch yn fawr.
I'd come, sorry, am I cutting across you, Gwyneth?
Did I dy llaw lawr, sorry, Gwyneth? Yeah, Hugh Worthing, thank you.
Yeah, I was just going to come back to say that we have a country lane in my ward that was always a quiet country lane, and it's constructed to that standard. Tim knows where I'm talking about. But in our wisdom over recent years, we've allowed planning application after planning application along that lane. So it's now no longer, or it's losing its character as a rural lane, and it's becoming the road to quite a lot of new properties, all probably averaging 2 or 3 cars per property. So the traffic is increasing. The road surface is deteriorating. It's in a very poor shape, but the road doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't link up. It just stops at the other end when it gets to the Bishop's Woods. So to that extent, it's not a priority, as Tim says, because it doesn't go anywhere. It just serves the houses. So maybe we ought to be saying through the planning process that should we be allowing planning applications on plots where the road surface approaching them really isn't adequate. And of course, the more you build, the more the road surface gets wrecked by heavy vehicles, etc., and then the increasing amounts of traffic. So I think there's a balance to be found there. And you wonder whether it should be addressed as part of the planning process as well as the highways process.
Thank you, Hugh. Thanks, Hugh. I'm going to move on. We've got a lot of speakers patiently waiting in the background. We've got Peter Scott, and then we'll go outside the group to CYMRAEG, who's been waiting for nearly 20 minutes. So Peter Scott and CYMRAEG.
Thank you, Chair. Question similar to Graham, really, but is there any money in this?
Turn your camera off, Steve. Sorry.
Again. I'm just wondering if there's any money in this for pavements along these rural roads, as well as the roads. Some of the pavements are in just as bad condition as the roads at times, and again, even on the 525 into St Asaph, the pavements are a little bit of a nuisance, and some of the pavements around the urban areas as well. So just a question about pavements as well, really, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. CYMRAEG like Davies, diolch.
O, diolch eto barchus Cadeirydd am adael ni fewn fel hyn. A diolch hefyd am yr adroddiad. A gai ddiolch hefyd, mae yna 2 ffordd yn cael i'w gwneud yn ardal I, diolch iddyn nhw. Gwaith ar Wigfair a Pen y Bont, a mae pen gawn ni wybod pryd maen nhw'n cychwyn, fydd o'n help mawr i'r bobl sy'n byw ar hyd y ffordd i wybod pryd gan nhw fynd o'r tŷ. Colli gweithwyr I leihau costau dyna sydd wedi digwydd yn yr adran yma, rhyw fath a pob adran arall o fewn y sir. A da ni'n dioddau oherwydd hynny. Y cwestiynau sydd gennau yn cychwyn yn tudalen 20, ond gan gychwyn yn tudalen 19, sef 4.8 tudalen 20. Mae yna ddos rannu Saesneg ac Saesneg. Byddwn nhw'n defnyddio cyllidebau revenue ac yn y blaen. I gadw gymaint o ddŵr a phosib oddi ar y ffyrdd. Wel, mae ddrwg gynnau Tim, ond hynny ddim yn digwydd. Mae gynnau gwyn ar ffordd B yn ymyl fi, a mae'r dŵr wedi bod yn tasgu ar hyd honno ers 2 blynedd wan, a mae'r gwaith dal heb I orffen yn iawn. Felly, a hefyd efo ef, mae'n egwyno nad ydy'r gwaith efo'r peiriant jet patcher rwan ddim gystal ag oddo pen nach chi gychwyn efo'r gwaith hwnnw, bod y gorffeniad ddim gystal o gwbl. Weithiau mae yna lwmp ac dro arall mae o'n agor yn weddol fuan. A'r peth arall hefyd o ran technoleg, da ni wedi cydweld ers blynyddoedd bod yr adran EF, fel da chi'n gweld y fanne, a D, mi ddylai bod y wyddor Gymraeg yn cael ei defnyddio. Diolch yn fawr. Nesa, tudalen 21, adran 5 eto. Pyn gael hyd iddo. O na, da ni'n mynd I cyrraedd fanno, naddo? 21, o do, mae ddrwg gynnau, mae ni. Da chi'n deud o dan 5.1, mae buddsoddi mewn ffyrdd a ffontydd i gynnal isad. Wel, dwi'n gobeithio bod chi'n cofio am pont Llanerch yn Trefnant. Dwi'n gwybod bod ni'n trafod hynny hefo'r swyddogion, ond peidiwch ag anghofio amdana ni. A dyn o dan 6.1, mae'n dweud nid oes unrhyw effaith sylweddol ar wasanaethau eraill. Bydd y drefn o nodir yn y papur hwn yn cael ei chyflawnio fewn cyllidebau sy'n bodoli. Wel, da chi wedi deitha ni os oes ddim cyllideb i drwsio'r bont, felly sut mae hwnna'n gywir yn y cyswllt yna, felly. Diolch yn fawr iawn, Mr Cadeirydd.
Diolch. Tim, do you want to kick off on that?
Can I just come in first on that last thing? Yeah, I think, you know, I mean, this report is kind of around the principles and the strategies that we used for maintaining the road network, particularly unclassified roads. So, you know, it wasn't intended to be all-encompassing to cover things like Llanerch Bridge. We certainly haven't forgotten about Llanerch Bridge. I hope that Merrick would acknowledge that, because we're regularly updating him and the other local member in relation to that issue, and I think we've got a clear position on it. So you know, this report wasn't intended to cover that. I just wanted to say before Tim comes in, the section that Merrick was referring to there, 4.8, with all the subsequent numbered points. I don't think we're trying to claim that we've resolved all of these issues. These are just highlighted as the key things, the key principles by which we work. Certainly water on the highways is a significant issue, and you know, it's the one thing that we really need to try and resolve, because water on the road is not a good thing and leads to deterioration. We all know that. And we've referred in other recent meetings to a drainage review that Tim is undertaking with the team with that in mind, because it's something that, you know, we do need to make sure that we do all we can. But so we weren't trying to claim there's no water on the highway, Merrick. We wouldn't try to do that, because it wouldn't be true, and it is a significant issue, particularly as we get heavier and more frequent rainfall events these days. But sorry, Tim, I just wanted to say that before you came in.
Oh, that's fine, Tony. Just picking up on Peter's point. Yeah, I mean, we've argued for additional funding for carriageways, and that's the £4 million figure that we talk about. On top of that, I've also year on year received what they call the block allocation, part of which we use to do work on footways. I must admit that we don't get that many complaints about the condition of footways, but there is a small allocation for us to do some work, and we also do some revenue work with footway slurry type materials to take out any unevenness. I think I'm aware of some of the paths that you're referring to, and you know, they're on the to-do list when we have the resources to do them. So that's.
Thank you, Tim. That's fine. Thank you.
Yeah. Just going back to Merrick's point about the jet patcher, we didn't actually use it last year because we were still trying to rejig the teams and get that on the go. We have reviewed what we want to do with it. And what we intend to do this year is bring it back onto the road, but we will also pair it up with a roller. I think that's one of the issues that we've had in the past, is that the machine has worked in isolation, and us having a roller following on behind it should compact the material better. So that's our intention for this year, is to try and get more effective final process with the same process.
Thank you, Tim. Merrick and Peter's happy. Can you put your hands down?
Be oedd y sefyllfa hefo'r wyddor Gymraeg i fod i gael ei defnyddio yn y papurau Cymraeg, parchus Gadeirydd?
Rhian, diolch.
Ie, ar hwnna, Wrth gwrs, mae'r adroddiad yn cael ei gynhyrchu yn Saesneg. Da ni'n anfon o'r cyfieithwyr ac da ni'n gael o'n i ôl. Mi fedrai godi hwnna hefo nhw, bod nhw heb newid y wyddor. Ond dwi'n meddwl ar bwriad o, bod fel bod chi'n gallu darllen ar draws, dwi'n meddwl fel, os da chi yn, so os da chi yn cyfeirio yn y cyfarfod at llythyren E, dydwch. Os ydych chi'n gwneud hynny yn y Gymraeg, ddim yr E fysau, felly fysa fe hynny o ran y cyfieithu ar y pryd yn drysau'r cyfieithwyr.
Diolch parchus Gadeirydd a diolch i'r rhian am yr esboniad, ond ddim dyna oedd sydd wedi cael ei gytuno yn yr adran ynglyn â y wyddor Gymraeg a'r adroddiadau.
Oce, nawn ni, o'n i'n noted, a Mario mynd i ddeud cwyniant, di'r gair. Diolch, Merig. The next two speakers are Martin Holland and Emrys. Thank you for being patient there. Martin Holland.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much. Well, first and foremost, can I just say, as a member for one of the largest rural wards, where I think possibly I've got 80% of the unclassified and C roads, can I just say I welcome the report and the extra funding. That's the first thing to say. Also, to be fair, I think that most rural members, our inboxes are full of information or questions about potholes, and we pass those on to Tim's team on a regular basis. So although perhaps they're only doing this review every 6 months of the rural roads, I have no doubt that Tim and his team are getting a lot of emails from us saying these are where the potholes are. And in most cases, I must admit, I do send a photograph in with them as well from the iPad. Just a quick comment before I go into my questions, just a quick comment. I'm surprised that Welsh Government are cutting our capital funding this coming year, when if you read the papers, the documents that are coming out of Welsh Government, that actually they have cut their new roads capital budget altogether. So I'm surprised that they're not allowing us some extra money to repair the existing roads. I can understand not wanting to put new bypasses in and things like that, and they are massive capital projects. So I'm surprised that our capital funding from them is being cut. A lot of my questions have been answered, so the patching machine and things like that. But can I just ask a few others? First and foremost, where do estate roads come into this 1,400 kilometres of road? Are they a separate entity, or are they part of that total figure? Bridges, as you know, some years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, I brought the question of bridges to scrutiny. And actually, it was one of the most popular meetings because Jim Hall was an excellent speaker and he really knew his subject. But at that time, I raised this because in rural communities, our bridges are often a lifeline and often the only way in to some of our rural communities. And at that time, we were talking about an £11 million backlog in repairing those. I just wonder where we are with that. And since then, I know, the Bridget Trevenant has gone as well. But I'm just concerned that as we have these, climate change and large amounts of water coming down from the hills, I'm just worried that some of our other rural bridges are in the same boat. You mentioned drains and gullies, just to say that I have that similar problem, lots of surface water on our roads, which are taking off the surfaces, which of course long-term means a bigger budget, cost to us. So I think that your comments about, clearing the gullies and drains more frequently, if possible, will save money in the long term. Over the years in the past, we have had trips around the rural wards with officers, which has been a good way of identifying identifying problems, certainly with resurfacing roads, etc. Some of my unclassified roads are more like farm tracks now. You can't tell where one pothole finishes and the next one starts. And Tim knows probably the main one I'm talking about on that score. But obviously, if I know COVID has put a stop to that, but I'm hoping that as COVID dissipates, that we can return to some of those visits in the rural wards to have a look at our roads. And just the final one, really a comment. You did mention about the guys in the teams looking a bit further than just the job they're filling. Can I suggest one of the things that we do need to do, certainly in rural areas, is actually clean the signs. A lot of them are covered in like a green verdigris, which actually blocks out the signs in many cases. And I know one at the Valley Lodge Junction sign there, which is quite a big sign which directs traffic. If you come along there at night and shine your lights on it, you can hardly see it. And it's because there's a film on the sign. So, again, it's just a small point, but actually by just giving them a damn good wash every now and again would solve a problem. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Martin. Emrys Wyn,
diolch yn fawr, Cadeirydd. Y problem o bod ymysg yr olau siarad ydy bod y cwestiynau wedi trafod o'r achos fi'n mynd i drio peidio ailadrodd. Gai sôn yn sydyn, Martin, they were cleaning the road sign in Rhawl yesterday, so maybe they'll get up to your area soon. Can I mention, yn Rhuthun ei hun, does gennym ni ddim ffyrdd DIDDOSBARTH. Dwi'n meddwl bod mae Tim Towers eisoes wedi cyfeirio, Tim Towers, Tony Ward wedi cyfeirio at y ffaith, mae adroddiad ydy hwn am y ffyrdd DIDDOSBARTH, a maen nhw'n gymharol Brein y Rhuthun o maen nhw yma. A dwi am gyfeirio'n benodol at ffordd maes glas sydd yn arwain i'ch ward chi, gadeirydd hefyd. Mae yna broblem wedi codi yma yn ystod y cawodydd trwm dyn ni wedi cael yn gymharol diweddar. Mae'n mater o ddreiniad, ond does ddim ffos ar y naill ochr na'r llall, a does ddim ffordd modd i'r dŵr gael ei gario o'r pant lle mae'n casglu. Mae'n ffordd fechan, mae'n debyg bod os wedi cael ei dosbarth ecfyddi os hynny, mae'n dipyn o boltol i bobl sydd eisiau dod o'ch ward chi i fewn i'r Rhuthun, os ydyn nhw'n gwybod amdani, mae'n mae'n dipyn o ddefnydd arni, mae hefyd ar ran o'r lwybr beic. Mae o'n swyddogol yn arwynio bach glas yn dangos bod o'n cycle route, fe gwirionedd. Ac o'r garfan yno, dwi wedi derbyn cwyn, a dwi'n meddwl bod y sir wedi derbyn cwyn hefyd, am y ffordd am y dŵr yn cronni. Y cwestiwn ydy, sut fyddai'r codi dod â hwn i gael mwy o flaenoriaeth na beth ych chi roi fel arfer i ffordd DIDDOSBARTH. Achos mae yn creu problemau, ac fi'n rhagweld mae gwaith hir dymor fydd angen i wneud mwyn datrys y broblem yna. Gan fi sôn am ddŵr, mae gennau ail gwestiwn parthed dreiniau. Mae ffyrdd DIDDOSBARTH fel ni fod yn ei drafod, mae bob siaradwr bron wedi crwydro i'r ffyrdd sydd wedi cael i'w dosbarthu hefyd. Mae yna dreiniau, yr ACO curb drains yma. Pen mae'r brwys y lori yn dod heibio ac yn clirio o'r ymylon, yn aml iawn mae'r môd a'r llaid yn cael ei wthio mewn i'r tyllau sydd i fod i ddreinio'r dŵr o'r ffyrdd, a mae hynny'n peri problemau hyd yn oed o fewn y dref ei hun. Ac yn ola, sylw mwyn â chwestiwn, gweld neges oddi wrth Tony Ward yn ystod yr wsos yma bod gobeithio o fewn y 6 wsos nesaf mi fydd yr troedffordd rhwng Rhuthun a Llanfer yn cael sylw a bydd yn dod yn ôl i fod yn troedffordd mwy llydan a diogel i'r ddefnyddwyr, boed nhw yn cerdded neu yn blant ar i'w beics ag ati. Ac yn ei cyfeirio, bydd bron iawn i mi o'r mestyn am y peiriant mesur pwysau gwaith pen gyda Tim Towers. Not many complaints about footways. Tim, these complaints must therefore come mainly from Rhuthun, because I only have to say Corwen Road to you. I think you will be aware of it. Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch, Emrys. Can I just call Steve Gardner? Steve is our support officer. So, Steve, you've got your hand up. Is anything question? You're on mute, sir. Sorry, Steve.
Sorry, Chair, my fault. I was just going to answer Martin's first point, if you want me to come in on that.
By all means,
yeah. It was just on the funding from Welsh Government. We have talked to Welsh Government. They come to our Society of Welsh Treasurers meeting, and they're clear that this isn't a policy decision. it's a one-off funding decision because their capital grant has decreased that they get through the Barnett formula. So it's not, they're definitely saying that it's not a policy decision. So next year, that funding will be back in the settlement is what they're saying. Yeah, so just to clarify that, it's a 1 year shortfall in funding that we're choosing as a council to fill. And Welsh Government is saying that in following years, they'll have enough funding to put that back in place. You know, obviously we'll have to wait and see, but that's what they're saying. So it's not a policy decision, but it's just a one-off 1 year funding decision.
Thank you, Steve. Tony and Tim, I'm sure you'll do a deal.
Yeah, I'll come in, Chair. Martin asked about where estate roads are. The table on 4.3 is the entire network. So that unclassified urban network are the estate roads. 222 kilometres is the estate roads. So that's that. Obviously, the highway network is a complex thing. It includes retaining walls and bridges and culverts and everything, and our job is to manage those. We're about to go into year 6 of the structures backlog program, so we are working our way through that. You know, it was identified and members supported that with additional funding, so we are working through that backlog, and you know, setting aside issues like Llanach Bridge and other infrastructure damage that we've had, we're still on track to get that backlog addressed. Just picking up on Martin's point about if you put a C360 in, if you can add a photograph, it makes all the difference. It really does help us to sort of quantify what the actual issue is. And I think maybe with the new C360 system, if the more customers that send in photographs, the easier it is and makes our job. So if I could encourage you as members to try and do that, that would be very helpful. Thanks. Right, MRIS, the Greenfield Road problem is perhaps an interesting example of the juggling that we need to do. It's a busy road in terms of residents walking that way, and we get that. The water does stand there because the fields are higher on both sides of the road, but ultimately after about an hour the water drains away. But the solution to put a new drain there is extremely expensive to take that water away. So it's one of those, yes, we appreciate there's a problem, yes, we know we need to do something about it, but where does that fit in terms of trying to prioritize if the water drains away fairly quickly? I suspect there is an old soakaway there, but we're not entirely sure. But that's symptomatic of some of the problems that we're getting, particularly with drainage issues where water sits there and we have no records of any systems in place. So it's not that I'm ignoring the problem, and we will be working to try and address it, but I just wanted to flag that up as a sample of some of the issues that we as a service have to try and take on board and try and manage. Tony mentioned before about my review of drainage. That includes a review of the gully emptying schedule. Now, over the years, we've put those ACO drains in. We have no proper record of those. And what we intend to do is to get a full record of them and then to align clearing those with the sweeping schedule. So we'll be working with street scene so that we align, the plan would be either to clear the drains out before we sweep them or to sweep it before we clear the drains out. But we need to come up with a system where we've got more joined up thinking in those areas. There's a significant length of those now across the county, and we do need to address those. So I think that was all of the questions from memory. I don't think I've missed anything.
I think you've answered the questions. I just made a comment about Common Road, but we can discuss that at another time if you wish.
Martin,
yes.
Are you happy?
Yeah, I think so, Mr. Chairman. I think we'd like to reinstate, obviously, the member/officer trips at some stage, but that's all down to COVID. I do appreciate that, but it would be a way of getting around to see our roads. Thank you.
Thank you. Gael, come here, Emrys.
Ia, sori, ddim yn hir. Gai fod yn deg, da ni wedi cael trip rownd y dre gyda Tim Towers yn mis Awst, lle ddaru ni ddangos rhai o'n pryderon efo'r pri aelod lleol i Tim Towers, a dyn diolchgar iawn iddo fo am ddod efo ni y diwrnod hwnnw. Ac Ond ymhylch y gynhau yr eco curbside drains yma. So ni'n awgrymu, dwi'n mynd arbenigwr, ond dwi'n meddwl bod isio clirio'r rheini ar ôl i'r brwsh bod heibio, achos hwnnw sydd yn fodus yn gwthio'r baw i mewn iddyn nhw. Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch Emrys. Dwi wedi gadael y siaradwr gorau ar i'r diwedd. Arwel Roberts, di'r olau siarad heddiw, wedyn o'n i'n mynd ymlaen. Diolch Arwel.
Be ti eisiau, Mr Cadeirydd? Diolch yn fawr iawn i ti. Diolch yn fawr iawn i ti. Da gweld sy'n cadeirio mor dda. Ga i godi pwynt mae'r Rhyddlan yn cynrychioli ardal wledig hefyd. Mae hi ar y ffin gyda ardal Dyserth, ardal Cwm sy'n mynd draw am Rhiallt. A mae yna ffyrdd gwledig yno, yn sicr i chi. Ac mae yna un ffordd sydd yn ymhoeni fi braidd. Dwi'n yn siŵr fel Gwyneth a di hi yn ec neu yn DIDDOSBARTH. Mae hi'n ffordd sydd yn arwain fath ar y bolt hole am yr A55, lle oedd yr hen clwb rygbi yn cyfarfod. A mae'r clwb rygbi, wrth gwrs, o dan ystyriaeth i gael ei ddatblygu, yr hen ardal yna, lle oedd yn ei chwarae rygbi ers dalwm. Heibio i fferm enw Cricyn, dyna chi enw diddorol, Cricyn. Mae'n siŵr bod ti yn gwybod amdano fo Huw. Ac mae hwnna'n ffordd brysur iawn ac mae mewn cyflwr drwg. Ac swn i'n hoffi gwybod gan Tim, a ydy hwnna yn ffordd ydyn chi'n feddwl yn edrych arni hi, achos os oes na ddatblygiad yn mynd i fod ar yr hen ardal chwarae rygbi, mi fydd hwnna yn ffordd llawer mwy beryglus eto. Ac yn ail, falle bod hyn yn beth yw sefyllfa bwrdwr. Mae Tim yn gwybod bod gennym ni cyn dod i mewn i'r bont gyntefig. Mae yna andros o potol anferth. A y rheswm dwi wedi cael bod y cyngor sir ddim yn gallu gwneud dim byd efo, bod y bwrdwr yn dalch yn ôl achos mae yna stop tap yna. A mae yna lawer o bobl yn rhoi ei olwyn a'i teiar i mewn i fanna. A dwi'n cael cwynion diri gan gynghorwyr a thrigolion y dre. Nad ydy byd yn digwydd yma yna. A mae wedi bod yn ais tipyn wan. Hefyd, os gai gyfle, dŵr yn ymgasglu fel mae cynghorydd Emrys Wyn wedi dweud, dŵr yn ymgasglu ar New Road, ffordd newydd sydd arwain heibio yr ffordd sydd arwain heibio'r fynwent. Mae dŵr yn ymgasglu pan yna dywyd trwm stormydd, felly dim bosib yn y dyfodol bod chi'n edrych ar hwnna, Tim, os gwelwch yn dda. Diolch i chi am y cyfle siarad, Mr Cadeirydd, a diolch am ymrolio fi. Ddim eisiau chi brolio fi o gwbl. Diolch yn fawr.
Tim?
Crickin Road, that was one of the roads that we closed last year. We did some significant work on it and improved it, and I think it's pretty good at the moment. Obviously, developments go on all the time, and the knock-on effect on the highway needs to, we have a team who look after that. So hopefully they can take on board improvements to the highway that need to be done in conjunction with that development. But my role is just to try and maintain the condition of what's there now. And I think in terms of Crickin Road, that we've done a good job there. Again, the stop tap issue, I'll follow up after the meeting, ROL, but I appreciate that you also sent a photograph yesterday, so that was helpful. And I'll try and get to the bottom of that. And yeah, the issue about the cemetery, we'll try and see what's going on there. But again, I think that's grown over the years and got significantly worse, isn't it?
Diolch yn fawr iawn, Mr Cadeirydd, a diolch i Tim. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you. Great, that comes the conclusion. Can I just thank Brian, Tony and Tim. Difficult subject and frustrating with all the cuts which have been over the years. So it goes to the recommendation. Graham's going to take it, but I'd like to add some on at the end, please, before we go to the vote.
Chair, the recommendation, there's one recommendation there and another one that you mentioned that we might add. The first one is that the committee considers the report and confirms it's happy that the correct approaches to highway maintenance is being applied so that the best alignment between the risk to users and the available funding is being achieved. And then the one that you mentioned after that, Chair, was the committee encourages the promotion of a one council approach to reporting problems being adopted by all staff and services.
I was going to add in laybys as well. What we have a report somewhere about the state of the laybys as well. I don't know where we go with that, but it needs to be in there somewhere.
Okay, so to add to that, the committee requests a report on the state of the laybys.
Yeah, maybe it's just an email report, because if they've been inspected in the last 6 months, there will be a report. You just want to make sure what they're in the highway network. So
okay, so there are the 3 recommendations.
So there's the recommendations. Anybody like to add to that, or are we happy to go with them 3 suggestions?
Sorry, Chair, could you just clarify what the request was about laybys, please?
What we have a report. We have a report in the last 6. Report on the laybys of the state of the laybys within Denbighshire. It only has to be an email report.
Okay.
If they've been inspected in the last 6 months, you'll have that data. Not wanting to go back into the meeting, but the state of the laybys throughout Denbighshire really cause for concern. We asked agricultural vehicles to pull over to let cars pass. We asked people to pull into laybys when they're tired and when it's a safe haven. And most of them have got potholes nearly waist deep. Maybe I'm exaggerating, but you know where I'm coming from. So, everybody happy with that? Yeah, we'll show of hands. Yeah, everybody's got a show of hands there. So that's passed. Thank you very much. Again, Brian, thank you. Tony, thank you. And Tim, thank you very much. Always a pleasure having you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we swiftly move on? Hugh Hildridge, are you there?
I am, Chairman, yeah.
Yeah, great, thanks, sir. So agenda number 6 is Hugh Hildridge, lead member of education, and it's safeguarding Welsh place names in Denbighshire. Author is Tim Dillon, and Hugh, do you want to kick off? And then I'm sure Tim will come in after as well. Hugh, you're welcome.
Yeah, well, I think it's quite straightforward, but that's probably the kiss of death. But basically, this is a paper for members to discuss the content of the report, and basically look at that they are satisfied with the council using all the powers that are given by Welsh Government regards to safeguarding the Welsh and historical names in both natural and the built environment. So what we're saying is that in the future, that we are here to make sure that the Welsh names are not replaced or displaced by English names in the future. So it's a policy from Welsh Government in the Act of 2016, and therefore that's why Tim is here, because it's more of a legal situation than our own policy, because it is with Welsh Government, and what isn't in the paper, and I will just our policy as well, I'll address it now, is that our policy is no longer to name streets, etc., after people, because we've seen situations where people have had streets named after them, and therefore, with the slavery and everything else going on, the debates at the moment, I think it's just safer to stay away from that, because that is a Denbighshire policy that we won't be doing that in the future. But what's in front of you is the Welsh Government policy to protect the naming of Welsh streets, etc. Tim, do you want to add anything? I think.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, obviously you've had the report. I think essentially the legal position is to have due regard to the guidance and have due regard to the Welsh heritage and Welsh language. It is not a specific duty to have strict Welsh language naming, but it's to have due regard to that. But what is interesting, of course, is that we do have a relatively recent policy in the context of street naming and numbering, where we go over and above our legal requirements. And in fact, in the policy that was adopted in actual fact a year ago, January 2021, it specifically states in section 5 that the policy, any new street naming has to be Welsh language. So that is essentially, that's over and above the legal requirements, and it's more than having due regard. I'm happy to assist members if you want, if you want me to clarify anything, if you have any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Hugh, and thank you, Tim. Members, there's no hands up at the moment. Oh, Mary Lloyd, Mary Lloyd Davies. There's nobody within inside the group, so we'll go to Mary Lloyd Davies.
O, diolch yn fawr eto, Mr Cadeirydd, sydyn iawn tro yna. 2 pwynt os gai, 4.5 yn tudalen 4 ar 20. Mae gen yr awdurdod lleol gyfrifoldeb am enwi a gall enwi lleoedd yn ei hardal. Da ni wedi bod yn trefnant ers amball I flwyddyn, 10 wrach wan, neu chwagor, yn trio cael enwi stryd sydd heb I henwi yn swyddogol, beth bynnag. Mae'r post yn dweud bod o'n iawn, ond tydio ddim. A mae'r adran wedi gwrthod anfon llythyrau allan I ofyn fasen nhw'n hoffi enw da ni fel cyngor cymuned neu aelod lleol yn gynnig iddyn nhw. Dyna pwynt 1 ar 4.5. Ac wedyn mae'n adran arall sef 6 ar tudalen 27 ynglŷn â costau. Mae'r cyngor sir hefyd hefo'r adran wedi gwrthod talu am arwydd cyfreithiol oedd I fod I gael ei osod mewn stad yn trefnant. A dwi'n gofyn yn garedig I yn cyfreithiwr ni heddiw, ydy'r cyngor sir wedi torri'r gyfraith ynglŷn â gosod arwyddion Cymraeg yn y blaen. Diolch yn fawr.
Nawn ni cymryd hwnna gyntaf yw Tim, please.
Thank you. In relation to the...
You go for it, Tim.
Thank you. I'm grateful. Thank you, Chair. Just in relation to the latter point there, I don't know the detail of that. I suppose what a follow-up from this meeting will be to make inquiries with the relevant department on that as to what exactly went on. But yeah, I can't really comment on whether whether that was legally permissible or not. So yeah, if we could, that could be a follow-up. In relation to the first query, again, that is perhaps something to follow up with the relevant departments. I'm not too sure about the detail on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Mierig, ti'n hapus I cymryd o hefo Tim tallan i'r gwarfodwyd?
Os gai, os roedd y ganiad I mi nawn ni drafod o a rhoi'r cefndir iddo fo. Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch y ddau na chi. Hugh, ti'n dod I fewn?
Na, mae'n iawn, dwi'n meddwl bod mae Tim di cyfro fo. Diolch.
Oce, Myrwyn Parry nesa, diolch.
Diolch Hugh. Just isio gwybod pam mae adeiladu tai yn cael ei hoid yn newydd yn pentre neu yn y dre. Mae modd cael gofyn i'r developer a i'r bobl y pentre neu'r ysgol newydd hoid enw ymlaen at y stad newydd. Ond ydy haid i'r... sut mae hynny'n gweithio efo enwi stadau newydd? Os rwy'n mynd i'n egluro hynny fi? Yn Gymraeg ac yn Saesneg I penderfynu ar y enw I stad newydd? Tai? Diolch.
Dwi'n meddwl wneud Tim ddod I fewn, ond y ffordd dwi'n deall o, erbyn ydy pwy bynnag sydd yn berchen ar y stad, maen nhw gallu cynnig enw ymlaen i'r sir, a wedyn mae'n mynd drwy rhyw broses o drafod adegynnu a gweld lle mae'n mynd, ia? Dwi'n meddwl bod hynny'n iawn, Tim?
Dwi'n dod I fewn, a nes I gweithio efo Clwyd-Alun ar y stad newydd yn Llanbedr, ac ar ni penderfynu ar y enw. Dyna sydd ar y gweithio efo Clwyd-Alun anyway. Diolch.
Os gai ddod I mewn, Mr Cadeirydd, jyst o ran cynorthwyo o fama yn ynyddiau fi, oedden ni'n cysylltu efo'r ysgol lleol os oedd y datblygwr yn methu darganfod enw. yn aml iawn enw'r cae neu enw i wneud efo pethau lleol, ac hefo'r aelod lleol. Ac oedd o'n gweithio'n iawn. A Cymdeithas Tai yn dda weithiau am ddarganfod 2 neu 3 o enwau, a wedyn gadael chi bigo yr un oeddech chi'n deimlo'n addas.
Diolch, diolch Merig. Ydy yna'n ateb y cwestiwn ddim Arwyn?
Yndi, neu tro am o, na i ofyn yn bellach yn hun hefyd am hynny.
Diolch fawr. Siaradwr nesaf ydy Graham Timms.
Diolch yn fawr, Cadeirydd. Can I just say that on this particular issue, I mean, I want to thank the council really for following this decision through, because naming streets has been discussed a lot, and the fact that our county was only the 2nd county in Wales to have a Welsh-only policy last year, I think that's something to be proud of. So thank you for all those that were involved in that. And let's hope that we can continue to be leaders in other policy areas in Wales too. Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch. Dim cwestiwn fan'na, just Emrys Wyn, a wedyn... Diolch.
Diolch yn fawr iawn. Dim ond sylw sydyn, dwi'n mynd i drio gwasgu cwestiwn os fydda i'n gwneud newid y sylw yn gwestiwn. Ydych chi'n edrych ar atodiad B i'r adroddiad polisi enwi ar rhif o strydoedd hadran 2 enwau strydoedd newydd. Mae yna restr o enwau y gellir ei defnyddio. Dylid ymdrechu, mae'n deud i ddechrau neu gorffen gydag un o'r rhagddodiaid neu o ddodiaid canlynol. Ac yn eu canon nhw, mae gennym ni'r gair dreif. Mae'n ymhoeni fi bod hwnna ar ddogfen swyddogol, achos weles i erioed arwydd yn defnyddio'r gair dreif i gynrychioli'r gair draif yn Gymraeg. Dwi wedi checio geiriadur yr Academi, dydy o ddim yn cael ei restru fanno. Yn anffodus, mae o'n cael ei restru yn geiriadur y Brifysgol Cymru. Ond sy'n ni'n meddwl bod o'n cael ei restru bod o'n air sy'n cael ei ddefnyddio ar lafar yn ytrach nag yn ysgrifenedig. A mi fyddwn ni'n gofyn am i'r gair yna gael ei dynnu o'r rhestr os gwelwch yn dda, le mae'n siŵr o gael ei ddefnyddio rhyw dro yn y dyfodol pan fydd o'n cael ei gyfieithu. Yn lle draif yn aml iawn, ffordd mae rhywun yn ddefnyddio fel sef yr un gair a road. Dyna'r un sylw am hwnna. Dwi wedi deud mewn sawl cyfarfod, mae'n hyfryd gweld yr arwyddion Cymraeg, a dwi'n croesawu'r adroddiad ar y cyfan, mae o'n rhoi lle teilwng iawn i'r Gymraeg yn polisiau'r sir o ran yr arwyddion. Ond does ddim un arwydd Cymraeg yn mynd i helpu, wel, dim yn mynd i helpu, ond dydy ddim ar ben ei hun yn mynd i achub dyfodol yr iaith Gymraeg, heb i ni gael y strwythur o'i gwmpas i gynodio. Ond mae'n elfen hanesyddol hefyd yn bwysig wrth enwi hefyd. Mae gennym ni lôn yr Rhuthun, lôn cae brics ydy ar yr arwydd, gyda Brickfield Road. Mae'n rheswm dros Brickfield Lane, Brickfield Road. Mae'n gysylltiad ar gwaith oedd yn digwydd i lawr y lôn yna yn y gorffennol. A mae eisiau, os ni byth yn dadlen erbyn defnyddio Brickfield Lane neu Road, os mae dyna'r dymuniad. Ond dydw i ddim yn fforddus iawn gyda'r lôn cae brics fel yr unig enw Gymraeg ar y lle. Mae'r mapiau Ordnance Survey, mae'r mapiau sy'n cael ei defnyddio gan y Pwyllgor, gan yr adran gynllunio heddiw yn dal i gyfeirio at yr ffron yna fel lôn Gwernydd, sef enw hanesyddol y lôn. A mae Gwernydd yn golygu tir gwlyb, a mae o'n cysylltu â natur y tir sy'n lawr yn y gwylodion yna. Felly, unwaith eto, yn lleol, gawn ni chwilio chi dda o falu bod ni'n gofalu am yr enwau cynhenid Cymreig, a hefyd ac yn gyffredinol gawn ni sgwelwch yn dda osgoi defnyddio geiriau sy'n amlwg wedi i'w Cymreigio o'r Saesneg yn ddiangen pe mae yna ffyrdd gwell ar gael. Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch Emrys. Hyw, ti'n dod o fewn?
Ie, un o'r pethau rili Emrys, dwi'n cytuno efo'r dreif, dwi'n mynd yn abod o fel gair bod ni'n defnyddio, a falle bydd gofyn i Tim os modd i newid y ddogfen yna, dwi'n yn gwybod y gyfreithiol lle ni'n sefyll, so bydd rhaid i ofyn y cwestiwn neu Tim. A dwi'n darllen, mae papur y Saesneg sgynna ymlaen i fama, ydy in particular to consider the Welsh names are not replaced or displaced by English names. Dyna'r bwriad y polisi yma. bod ni ddim yn mynd i newid yn y dyfodol. Byddwn ni ddim yn deud, wel, di lôn cae brics ddim yn lôn cae brics yn pellach, mae jyst yn mynd i fod yn Brickfield Lane, di hwnna ddim yn mynd i ddigwydd. Dyna pam dyn ni'n neud siŵr bod ni'n edrych ar ôl y enwau Cymraeg yn y dyfodol. So dwi'n gwybod, Tim, what is the legal position with changing the policy? Because I personally would agree with the MRIS that drave, but he cynnig dros ysgwydd, really. It's just a bit of a throwaway word that's been thrown into the policy, which really doesn't sit in the Welsh language, really.
That's right. Thank you. Chair, can I assist?
Yes, of course you can.
Thank you. Just with this, I suppose, with the role of this particular committee, Scrutiny Communities Committee, I suppose the actual policy itself was agreed at Cabinet, I understand, and I suppose you would give recommendations to Cabinet to amend the policy. I think that might be the correct approach here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tim. Alla gei di dod nôl pam dyn ni'n neud y recommendations, Emrys?
Bydd rhaid i rhywun o'r Pwyllgor wneud yr argymhelliad.
Iawn, oce.
Wrach bod o'n bosib i wneud o hefyd, achos ni'n edrych mewn i hwn yn bellach, ond gan mai newid bychan ydi o. Os oes argymhelliad yn mynd o'r Pwyllgor yma, mi feder o fynd, lle bod o'n mynd i'r Cabinet ffurfiol, mi fedrith o fynd fel penderfyniad i'r aelod arweinio.
Iawn, oce. So, gael rhywun wedyn o'r Pwyllgor yma yn neud o, Tim, Graham. Iawn, oce. Emrys, ti eisiau dod nôl?
Sydyn iawn. Gael jyst egluro ymhwyn sy'n lôn cae brics. Sy'n wedi ennill i le i fod yn deg, gan ein byd yn erbyn y lôn cae brics, ond dim eisiau colli'r enw traddodiadol ffordd Gwernydd, lôn Gwernydd ydw i, achos mae gen fo gysylltiad hemlwg iawn ar ardal hefyd. Os yw'n modd cael y ddau, sy'n ddim problem ar arwyddion ag ati. Mae'n ni'n dweud, i arwydd y ben ei hun, ddim yn mynd i ddiogelu dyfodol yr iaith, ond mae'n mynd i ddiogelu'r hen enwau. Ac ynghylch y gair dreid, ar lafar, iawn, dim problem o gwbl. Dwi'n siŵr mod i'n ddefnyddio'n hun, ond yn ysgrifenedig, newid bychan ydi o, iawn, ond pe baid yn ymddangos ar arwydd ffordd, mi fase fo yn chosi ymateb lleol i hynny, dwi'n siŵr o hynny.
Diolch. Diolch, Emrys. Gwyneth, nesa, ar y Pwyllgor.
Diolch yn fawr. Doedd gen i ddim cwestiwn yn wreiddiol, ond ar ôl clywed be oedd Emrys yn dweud, nes i gysidro. Ella dylai fod o'n rhan o'r polisi na ddylid cyfieithu enwau llefydd yn uniongyrchol. Mae yna enghraifft yn agos i fi fan hyn yng Nghorwen, lle mae yna ffordd ar enw Green Lane, a dwi wedi weld o'n cael ei gyfieithu mor aml i ffordd werdd yn cynnwys gan y cyngor ei hunan. Lôn Las ydy Green Lane, ond mae cyfieithwyr yn aml iawn yn cyfieithu green i wyrdd nad ydy hynny ddim yn gywir bob tro yn Gymraeg. Felly, efallai dylai fod yna rhywbeth yn y polisi neu'r adroddiad sydd yn sicrhau nad ydy enwau yn cael eu cyfieithu, ond bod nhw'n cael eu newid i Gymraeg mewn ffordd gwahanol. Diolch yn fawr.
Oce. Hildrich.
Ie, just falle, cos dwi'n siŵr yn iawn ar ran y gyfraith, ond y ffordd teg fi ar hwn ydy mae o yn gwneud yn siŵr bod na ddim, gan i ddweud ffordd cae glas, fel enghraifft, bod o ddim yn mynd i just fod yn Greenfield Road yn y dyfodol. Bod y ddau enw dal yn ddiw ac yn cael ei warchod mewn ffordd. Ac y ffordd dwi'n dall o wan ydy, os fyswn ni'n enwi Greenfield Road neu ffordd cae glas yn y dyfodol, bydd o just yn ffordd cae glas. A dyna ffordd dwi'n cymryd y polisi yma, a dwi'n gobeithio bydd y twrnau gallu cefnogi dyna di'r sefyllfa, ia Tim?
Yeah, to assist, yeah, there is a good point there about there's always a risk with a literal interpretation, isn't there, from English to Welsh. And like I said before, the legal position is that local authorities acting in their capacity as naming authorities need to take into account, they should take into account historic place names. So that's the natural, proper Welsh name, as opposed to the should I say, defective interpretation name. So that's already there. So due regard has to be had to that, and not the literal interpretation. Thank you.
Diolch, Tim. Led anyone? Ola i siarad eto?
Diolch yn fawr iawn ti. Beth sydd yn blaen ni yma, di cadarnhau bod y cyngor yn defnyddio ei holl bwerau ar diogelu enwau Cymraeg yn hanesyddol ac ar amgylchedd naturiol ac adeiledig. A fel un ar ei wthio hwn ymlaen yn y Pwyllgor Cymraeg dros yr iaith Gymraeg sy'n cael ei gadeirio gan Graham ac mae Emrys yn rhan ohono fo hefyd. Felly dwi'n diolchgar iawn am y gwaith yma i Hilditch a hefyd yr cyfreithiwr wedi wneud. Mae'n ambell i beth sydd yn gallu mynd ar ynghroen ni y ffaith, byddwch am y gair clos ynddo. Mae yna lef am y clos Owen. Mae clos yn air sydd hefyd yn debyg i trons. A pan ydych chi'n meddwl am trons Owen ynddo, mae'n swnio'n digon od yn dydi. Ac felly clos berllan iawn. Un cwestiwn sydd gynna i ydy bod chi dau beth i gwir, un manylder. Mae'n bwysig cadw enwau lleoedd sydd wedi bod yn y Gymraeg trwy'r amser. Geiriau fel ydych chi o blaen yn yr uned dwytha o blaen, fel cricyn, fel fachwen. Geiriau enwau sydd yn bwysig eu cadw. Dyna pam da ni wedi codi hwn. Mae yna dueddiad bod ni'n colli enwau ar adeiladau ac yn y blaen. Ac mae hyn yn hynod y bwysig bod Ddinbych yn cadw traddodiadau yr enwau sydd gennym ni ar lefydd, ar adeiladau, ar geiau a hanesyddol ac yn y blaen. Dyna pam mae hwn ger eich bron chi, ond mae'n gam i'r cyfeiriad iawn. Felly, sy'n ni hoffi chi edrych ar gair clos yma. Mae'n rhywbeth od iawn i mi. Ac hefyd, dydwch bod yna enwau wedi dod o'r blaen yn enwi pobl. A oes gan y polisi yma ar hawl i cael gwared ar enw yna. Hynny yw, dydwch bod Clos Hugh Williams gennym ni. A da ni'n deud, da ni'n misio Hugh Williams ar enw'r lle yma rwan. Ydy'n bosib i ni symud hwnna oddi wrtho ni ar ôl iddo fod yna am dipyn. Diolch.
Diolch Arwel. Fysa Clos Hugh Williams yn un mawr efo trons ofnadwy o fawr. Dwi'n meddwl, dau beth. Ar ran clos, os wyt ti yn byw yn y de, mae clos yn bia ffarm hefyd. So mae o, y draws Cymru, mae o yn meddwl pethau gwahanol, dydi. Ond fel ti'n dweud, mae gallu swndio fel rhywbeth arall. I fi, mae hwn, ar ran y polisi yma, mae'n hollol positif i fi. Dydyn ni ddim yn mynd i cael enwau Saesneg, a dwi'n cytuno 100% bod rhaid bod y geiriau traddodiadol dal yn perthyn. Dwi'n cofio o'n enw gais ambell i fis yn ôl, blwyddyn yn ôl, ond nhw eisiau newid hen le, o'n nhw Pwll y Chwied. A dwi'n meddwl mae enw fel ne yn rhan o Gymru, a dyma rhaid ni warchod hynny a wneud yn siŵr bod ni'n cadw heina yn y fan. A ran newid enw, os fyse Clos Hugh Williams a bod Hugh Williams yn dod allan a di wneud rhywbeth ofnadwy, dwi'n cymryd mae'n yr un broses byse fo i roi cais i fewn i newid yr enw. A byse rhaid i ni fod cymryd y sylw o fanau, dwi'n meddwl. Falle bod Tim yn dweud fi rhywbeth gwahanol, ond dwi'n cymryd bod y broses mynd i fod rhyw fath os fyswn ni'n newid yr enw, ie?
That's right, just to assist, Chair, and to clarify that's right. If they're, well, first and foremost, with the policy, you know, a street name can't be named after an individual, whether alive or deceased. Obviously, that carries a degree of risk, doesn't it, with what's happened relatively recently concerning criminality or whatever of individuals. In that situation, yeah, the street name, there'll be a process to follow, and again, the local authority will have to consider the Welsh Government policy, consider Welsh language and heritage before a decision is made. So yes, and due regard will be had to that.
Diolch yn fawr iawn. Diolch yn
Yeah.
fawr.
Thank you, Tim, and thank you, Hugh. So we'll no speakers. No. Nobody quiet. Graham, can we kick over to the recommendations? Can you just jot down what Emrys said?
Yeah, I'm not sure I get that.
Might need a bit of help with Emrys here.
Yeah.
Could help.
Emrys, did you do it down?
Yeah, I can help there.
You'll have to put it through Graham.
Yes, I can. Yeah, okay. I'll speak in English as well. So, the use of the word drive would not be acceptable on any sort of official document or signage. Yes, when we speak the language and we can use it colloquially, it's not a problem at all. As I say, I would probably use it myself, not that I notice that I do, but I'm sure I would occasionally. The translation for drive normally would be ffordd, the same as road. That is my point on the list on Appendix B, Section 2, policy and the naming and numbering of street naming and numbering policy in the report. So we can remove the word drive from there, please, or else it will be used. And if it is used, could be open to criticism from outside.
Okay, diolch Emrys. Emrys, I know it's the councillor's decision. Tim, are you comfortable?
Yes, yeah, that's fine if there's a recommendation to that effect. Thank you.
Diolch.
Yeah.
So that recommendation would go to.
The recommendation would go through to cabinet, but they may decide that it's a minor amendment, so they may ask it that it doesn't formally go to cabinet itself, but it'll be done under delegated decision powers by the lead member, which I think would be Hugh anyway.
So that the committee writes
to cabinet
to the cabinet member responsible. Yeah. Okay.
Could I make?
I think we're ready. I don't know if the point that I was going to make, Gwyneth, is about the renaming, the translation of names.
No, I want to make a comment on the drive issue.
Ah, sorry.
If I can.
What Emrys has said.
Yes.
Yeah, go on in. Yeah, fair away.
It's just that that section, as far as I can see, is not in the Ddinbych report, but it's in the report from the Welsh Government. So are we able to change that? I would have thought that we can't.
So, sorry, that is actually in Ddinbych's policy. It's on Ddinbych's policy is on page 57 onwards. On that.
If I can assist, yeah, it's on page 57, I understand. Page 10 of the actual policy itself.
It's got a Ddinbych badge on top.
Yeah, I'm going to. Okay, Gwyneth, are you happy with us to carry on with Emrys's recommendation to Graham? Graham, are you comfortable with everything?
Still can't find it. Page. Okay. Yeah. So that recommendation then to add would be that the committee writes to the lead member to recommend that the word drave is not included in the policy, and he could do that under a delegated decision if he was so minded. He's here, maybe it will take his time to decide, but if we write to him to ask for that. Okay, so the recommendations, then the three recommendations, I think, are the first one that members discuss the content of the report, which we've done. Second one, to confirm that they're satisfied that the council is fully utilising all powers conferred upon it with regards to safeguarding Welsh and historic names.
Not easy to hear you, Tim. Sorry.
Sorry. Okay, I'll start again. Did the first one. The second one is to confirm that they are satisfied that the council is fully utilising all powers conferred upon it with regard to safeguarding Welsh and historic names in both the natural and built environment. And the third one that we want to add, that the committee writes to the lead member to suggest that the word drave is deleted from the Welsh language policy, the street naming policy that they've done.
Okay.
Before you go on, Chair, can I don't know if you've seen the message that's come through from DS, referring to point 2.1, where it states that the new pedestrian space will end with one of the following. It should be to begin. Is that something we need to take notice of in here in this meeting now before we vote on it?
No, I think we've had the recommendations. Graham has read them out. We've listened to the debate. You're not on this committee. We've been kind enough to let you speak and put your concerns over. So members of the committee, Graham has given us recommendations. Do you want to hear them again, or can we go to the vote? I need a proposer and a seconder.
I'll propose them, Chair.
William Parry and Brian Blakely second. Can we have a show of hands what everybody's in agreement? Lovely, that's a full house. Diolch Hugh, Hildridge a Tim, diolch o galon, neis i weld chi. Emrys, diolch am fod yn glyw. Right, symud ymlaen i agenda item rhif 7, a dim meddwl bod Rhian sy'n mynd i cymryd hwn. Diolch, Rhian.
Ie, dyma'r adroddiad rhaglen waith arferol chi. Mi welwch yn atodiad 1 sydd ar dudalen 89, y rhaglen waith chi ar gyfer y cyfarfodydd sydd i ddod. Mi gymerwyd penderfyniad yn y grŵp cadeiryddion mis Tachwedd. Oherwydd bod ni'n dod i fyny at yr etholiadau lleol yn mis Mai, mi fydd y cyfnod cyn-etholiadol fel dwi'n dall yn cychwyn ar y 19fed o fis Mawrth. Felly fydd yna ddim cyfarfodydd na gyda nhw'n angen reidiol anna fed y busnes ddim aros yn cael ei cynnal o'r 19fed o Fawrth ymlaen. Wan, mae'ch cyfarfod nesaf chi'n digwydd bod ar y 10fed o Fawrth. Mae yna 4 eitem yn fanne ar hyn o bryd. Mae yna 1 neu 2 yn nhw dwi ddim yn hollol siŵr a fyddan nhw yn barod erbyn y 10fed o Fawrth. Ond hefyd wrth gwrs mae'r grŵp tasg a gorffen ar lifogydd a chefnogaeth glannau afonydd. Mae hwnna i fod i adrodd yn ôl i chi cyn diwedd y sesiwn yma o'r cyngor. Felly mae yna bosibilwydd bydd yr adroddiad y grŵp yna hefyd o'ch blaen chi. Dwi yn gwneud ymweliadau ar hyn o bryd ynglyn â'r strategaeth arwyddion twristiaeth yna, achos dwi'n gwybod bod hwnna wedi cael ei dal yn ôl gen Covid. Mae'n eitem yna ar gam drin cwn, hefyd eitem ar 2H a tai sy'n cael ei gosod ar dymor byrdd fel tai gwyliau. Dwi ddim yn hollol siŵr ar hyn o bryd fydd y swyddogion mewn y lle i allu adrodd yn ôl chi ar hwnna, achos dwi'n gwybod bod y cynulliad, neu llywodraeth y cynulliad ar hyn o bryd yn trafod cynlluniau peilot yn rhai rhan o Gymru i edrych ar hwnna, so dwi'n yn hollol siŵr fydd hwnna'n barod. A wedyn, yr adroddiad arall ydy'r siarter planning compliance charter. Dwi'n meddwl byddwn nhw'n gallu dod â honna i chi os fydd y cyfarfod yna yn mynd yn ei flaen a bod yna le yna fo. Yn atodiad 2 mae'r ffurflen gais Mae yna gyfarfod o'r grŵp cadeiryddion pnawn ma. So os oes gen rhywun unrhyw eitem ar frys maen nhw eisiau iddyn nhw ystyried i, sa chi'n llenwi honna i mi a'i gyrru mi cyn 2 o gloch pnawn ma, fydden nhw roed ystyriaeth iddi. Wrth gwrs, mi fydd pethau rwan yn cael ei dal yn ôl, mae siŵr tan ar ôl yr etholiadau mis Mai. Wedyn yn atodiad 3 mae rhaglen waith y cabinet, ac yn atodiad 4 mae'r diweddara ar eich penderfyniadau chi o'r cyfarfod dwytha. Dwi ddim yn meddwl bod yna ddim byd arall o gynnau eisiau godi sydd ddim yn yr adroddiad.
So, symud ymlaen I read with feedback of committee representatives. Ydy pawb yn hapus efo read 7, sorry. You know, we got Ffraeg and Rhian. Ydy pawb yn hapus? Everybody happy? Yeah, yeah. So, number 8 is feedback from committee representatives. We have a flood task finishing group meeting tomorrow. It should be the last one. Councillor Mervyn Parry, Peter Scott.
Yeah.
If I've missed anybody else, and thank you for chairing the last meeting, Peter.
Thank you.
So hopefully we'll have a chance to give that report back before the end of this council life. So anybody else on representatives on any committees? Councillor Mervyn Parry.
Yeah, it was just a quick question. Can you hang on? Let me put the camera off. It's just a quick question as a reminder, because we might not have the opportunity again, and I might not be a councillor again if I'm not successful in the election. We were going to have a report brought back to community scrutinies on the impact of the closure of Ysgol Rhewl to the community of Rhewl itself, and I don't think that still hasn't happened, and I don't want to lose that opportunity of having that report, even if I'm unsuccessful in the next election, for the residents of Rhewl to understand how it's impacted them. So I'll leave that one there.
Yeah, that report is actually on the Forward Work Programme. If you look at page 93 of your pack, it's under the information report section, and it's due to be circulated next month.
Yeah. Just if it gets set back, all I'm asking is that we don't lose it. That's all I'm asking. If we lose it with various things, so just make sure that it does come back.
Diolch, Mervyn. Anybody else? All quiet?
Thank you.
Yep. Right, can I bring this meeting to a conclusion? Hopefully it's not our last one, but we'll see this afternoon, I'm sure. Thank you very much, members. Lovely to see you all, and keep safe.
Diolch yn fawr.